Daylight came and Harry went home. Hi, this is Steve. Welcome to Ess-Fo. One of my favorite lyrics from the past 10 years, written by Nick Cave, I think about his son who died, goes like this. The kid drops his bucket and spade and climbs into the sun. That's how I imagine Harry Belafonte left us when he passed away this past week. The King of Calypso will forever be associated with tropical music, but it was his toil that defined him most. I found it heartening that a lot of the headlines routinely noted his activism even before his career as a musician and a film star. And a lot of the biographies in these obituaries kind of read like a nonstop victory march for Harry. But even before he marched in the US civil rights movement, it cannot be understated how much of an activist he was in his career. His instinct for folk music and for taking movie roles where racism was openly challenged. He made Island in the Sun in 1959, where a Caribbean guy contemplates a relationship with a white woman. That's just 4 years after Emmett Till was murdered. So you know he got death threats. You know he was hated by white singers who thought he was taking jobs that were rightfully theirs, and they would probably complain that he only got them because he was black, which is irony unparalleled. When I learned the news that Harry Belafonte had died, I posted a quote on Instagram from one of Bob Dylan's biographies, and the quote underscores how everything Belafonte did was for the betterment of other people. 96 years, and every hour of it was paid forward. In other news, and it's hard to find music news, as far as hard news was defined when I was in J school. Apart from obituaries, everything is sort of like, for instance, it was breaking news that Harry Styles, not Harry Belafonte, Harry Styles was releasing a new single on May the 3rd. That's not breaking news. That's been packaged and fretted over for months before they decided to release the information. But it's wagging the dog, really. Case in point, 2 bills were introduced this week in the U.S. Senate. Bear in mind, this is while we are engaged in a proxy war with Russia and ostensibly China, and recession is looming once again. These bills are aimed at the boogeyman, Ticketmaster. What's the urgency? Well, if you remember, Taylor Swift handed the responsibilities of ticketing for her summer tour to Stonehand's Ticketmaster, who dropped the ball, and the U.S. people said this injustice will not stand. The first bill is a bipartisan effort, actually, sponsored by Washington State Democrat Maria Cantwell and Texas Republican Ted Cruz. Really? We're in bed with Ted Cruz on this one? Talk about a PR stunt. And it will require Ticketmaster and venues, etc., to advertise the whole cost of a ticket. This way you aren't surprised by fees, etc., when you are in the shopping cart and you've got a minute to decide whether or not you're about to blow $500. The precedent for this implementation, because Ticketmaster will cry free speech, is that airline tickets are sold this way now. The second bill is sponsored by Democrat Senators Amy Klobuchar and Richard Blumenthal. And it's probably destined to fail, but it does pull back the curtain a little bit. It's already succeeded in one point in publicizing an aspect of the ticket industry that may not be as well known to the public. So Ticketmaster and its competitors, Ticketmaster has competitors, right? They sign advance agreements with venues and sports stadium. These are usually large loans, really, and they can be for exclusivity contracts that last several years. The customers then use this money for whatever reason, and then they pay it back, usually from money garnered from service fees and other monies we pay them. The bill hopes to increase competition by restricting the length of these exclusivity agreements. Billboard columnist Dave Brooks argues that shortening these agreements will just destabilize things, and venues will then have less time to repay the loans and will be placed at risk during lean months. The logic being that it's easier to pay back $4,000 over 4 years, for instance, if you have a 6-month period in that frame that goes poorly, versus having to pay back $2,000 over 2 years, but having a 6-month lean run during that stretch. Brooks doesn't really approach the sanity of the loan system in the first place. He has a history of writing for Polster, which is owned by Irving Azoff, who owns Madison Square Garden and is representing dozens of big-name artists. Azoff, for the record, says the real problem in the ticketing industry is scalpers. I didn't have a problem with scalpers a couple weeks ago. I was looking to buy tickets for a show, I can't remember what, in Chicago, smaller venue. It was the week of the show. Tickets were still available. They were $29 a piece. I wanted two, so we're talking $60 with tax. And then I got in the shopping cart, and the service fees were more than $30, more than 50% of the ticket price. Needless to say, I didn't buy them. And that's partly why I do Ess-Fo too. You can spend $200 a ticket, it's your money, and on some fees, buy a $12 soft drink, and continue to complain. Interest rates are high. You could put most of that money in the bank, get a little interest coming back to you, and then put $10 in the hand of a doorman at a local concert, have plenty of money left over for a beer and an Uber ride home. Anyway, rant over. On to the music. There are about 10 songs. Actually, I haven't counted how many I'm about to talk about in this episode. But anyway, there are songs I love from April, but I didn't ultimately review them on my website or on Instagram. Up first is a collaborative effort between Marca MP and Fuerza Regida. The song is called Creció la Cuenta. The two bands both grew in popularity very organically, playing parties, local concerts. Only one of them, I think, is signed to a major label, and that's Fuerza Regida. They got huge just from playing what are called trap corridos, which are kind of traditional Mexican folk music about narcotraficantes, drug dealers and stuff. I find it amusing that trap music, when rap music is very beat-oriented, whereas trap corridos, they have no drums. They're just tuba. Marca MP is a little less well-known of the two and is almost as reputed for its reluctance to record in its studio as it is for its Nuevo Banda and Ranchera songs. They have, I think, 3 studio albums, but also like 10 live albums. And they're young guys. They're in their early 20s or something like that. Anyway, Marca play a couple shows per month from May through November in the U.S., whereas it does more or less the same, but they cling more to the South and the Southwest. Second, Saba's new single, Back in Office, is classic pre-drill Chicago rap. It was produced by No ID, who was Common's right-hand man when he was still known as Common Sense. There are a few bars where Saba raps like Kanye West when Kanye would sort of lean into the fact that he couldn't rap, but now everybody raps like Kanye. And then there's this cool part where Saba pops a P with his... it sounds improvised, but you never really know. And to cap it, he goes into that sort of Chance the Rapper space where he's adamant about not signing a record deal. So that's why it's classic Chicago. Anyway, Saba plays the Governor's Ball Fest in Queens in June, and he opens for Chance, actually, in Chicago in August at the United Center. Staying kind of in Chicago, Nightmare features former members from Gigan as well as the German metal bands The Ocean and War from a Harlot's Mouth, aka WFAHM. The song Brutalist Imperator isn't outwardly innovative from an extreme metal, death metal point of view. However, if the Cookie Monster vocals from those genres are your really thing, here in this song they almost recall Tom Waits, the caveat being that the Tom Waits song Hell Broke Loose, which was an overlooked and one of the few decent Iraq War protest songs. Nightmare have one show coming up in Seattle in May, and their debut EP is available now. While reviewing the single Nunca Plus by Heartgaze, I followed a trail to collaborator FCO Chandia, I think that's how you say it. He's a Chilean rapper, singer, sort of crossover artist whose song El Mundo Se Acaba was released this year. If you equate electric piano with summer, you're halfway there. The song has a very relaxed patio party vibe and has a chorus, Dime lo que vas a hacer con esta mentalidad, which was sung slowly enough for me to understand it, and I think means, what is your plan with this mentality you have? It's probably more poetic than that in Spanish, but, look who you're dealing with here. FCO Chandia's song is a great segue into Kill Bill by SZA and Doja Cat, which is a sweet reminder that if I can't have you, nobody can. Moving on, there's something in the way I just said that. I was just ranting last night about a new song, kind of a country song that blatantly rips off something by the Beatles, and here I've just said there's something in the way Bella White sings. There's something about how Bella White pronounces the letter I, specifically in the word I, as in me, myself, and I, in the song Flowers on My Bedside. It suggests that she's not from the South, but she is from that other country capital in North America, Calgary. Flowers on My Bedside has a very conversational Loretta Lynn style to it. It makes me think that on tour, Bella White is a very delightful rock on tour. You'll have a chance to see her. She plays North America and Europe in May and June. Among other things, was released in April by Rounder Records. We're almost done here. There's a trio of sisters who've been recording upbeat pop music for about a decade now. They're called, not Haim, no, they're called Joseph. I had no idea. They have a new song called The Sun, which is also from their new album, The Sun, on ATO Records. If you enjoy Haim, the Aces, Child Seat, you'd probably enjoy this very much. Finally, if you gave up on Leslie Feist back when I did, which would have been the millionth time hearing 1, 2, 3, 4, I have to let you in on a secret. In Lighting, her new single is iPod Nano commercial resistant up to 300 meters. It's actually kind of like classic, and by classic I mean accessible, Bjork from about the same iPod era. Feist's new album Multitudes was released in April. My colleague Jeremy J. Fissette at Beats Per Minute reviewed it and gave it a 76 out of 100, so you know it's good. Feist tours the US in May. So that's it. Keep visiting the site for new music and new reviews. See local bands if you hate service fees. Ta-ta.